All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in the Pratt Pack Gym. A little entertainment news before we head off to News Radio 1020 KDK for Rob Pratt Monday night. You know, I have been in the business of entertainment for many years, going back to the late 70s. And in the early years, it was all about playing the latest sound, you know, vinyl, and of course that 33 1/3 needle, and the music that really came out to mold my life and also shape the music of the world. And for many years, you know, you would go from one form of music to another thinking nothing other than, yes, it's the latest craze. Not taking time because you were caught up in your own life trying to carve out your own career, what was going on, not just musically, but behind the performers. Well, there was a performer that really was very important in my life in music. His name is Eric Clapton, and right now Showtime is presenting Eric Clapton, Life in 12 Bars. It is a must-see, and is very difficult at times to watch, especially for someone that you, from afar, have always admired and loved and respected for his music. Millions of records, 18 Grammys, and just being able to withstand the test of time. But, you know, I have gone back many times in my life to think of where my love for music began. And, you know, in my home growing up, listening to the songs that my parents were playing, obviously a big part of it, right? But then musically, my own, as far as Elvis Presley, and yes, rhythm and blues, going back to Chess Records, back when people like Muddy Waters was singing Hoochie Coochie Man, and people like Little Walter playing that harmonica, and Chuck Berry, of course, and then how all of the music kind of became a part of that British invasion when the Beatles hit the Ed Sullivan stage in 1964, and what George Harrison was doing incredibly on a guitar. But having Lennon and McCartney and Ringo along for the ride, sometimes people really didn't notice his genius. But there was something about a certain sound that always kind of captured my imagination. Even years later, after its original release, I was playing it in album-oriented rock radio and really admiring it more and more and more. Kind of like my life in 12 bars, one musical bar at a time. Groups like Cream, the Yardbirds, Derek and the Dominoes, and all of a sudden I realized on that launching pad was a person by the name of Eric Clapton. Well, this documentary is all about him and a very rough ride. Being rejected by his own mother kind of, well, sent him spiraling through a life of drugs and alcohol and a lot of really failed relationships. One of them, Patty Boyle, who happened to be the wife of George Harrison, a longtime friend, and that turbulent battle that went on back and forth for years. And after a number of stints in rehab and just trying to find himself, he went through a lot of personal tragedies, including losing his young son Connor in a tragedy in New York City, in which he fell out of a window and plunged to his death as a very young child. And Tears from Heaven, of course, which was a big hit and a big winner at the Grammys that year, but also a very poignant song for him, and how he talked about it really helped him get better. Music saved his life. So much so that he felt to take his wealth and a lot of his prized possessions, meaning guitars, and auction them for Crossroads, which is a drug and alcohol rehab center that he is still proud of today and continues to help thousands upon thousands of people. And yes, the great thing about this story, there is a happy ending. And, well, to play the blues, it was once said that you've had to live the blues. And believe me, he has lived the blues. I think we all have in one form or another, and not all of us can say that we're as talented as him, meaning Eric Clapton. But strangely, believe it or not, his music along the way kind of healed a lot of us. And I am probably included in that group. From the neon light at the jukebox late at night to playing it in those radio studios along the journey by myself, especially during those late night shifts when you had nothing but your headphones and the music to keep you company. So it really gave you a chance to plug in. But the good thing about this story, Eric Clapton has been around long enough and is still healthy with a wife and daughters to be able to play an encore. And you know what? That's not just good for our generation, but generations to come. Because music truly has a healing force to it, and the man behind it, with one guitar pick in hand, is Eric Clapton. I highly advise you to listen to any Eric Clapton song, and some of the favorites, well, of course, as I mentioned, Tears from Heaven, wonderful tonight. I Shot the Sheriff, the great Bob Marley rendition of that incredible song. I don't know. He's just pretty incredible. And Layla, yeah, one of my all-time favorites. So please take some time, Showtime, Comcast On Demand, and I promise you it'll be worth the time watching Eric Clapton's Life in 12 Bars. And what a life he led. And we are all so fortunate that he made it through and he's still here entertaining us today. Have a great rest of your day. Good night from the Pratte Pack Gym.